Hello, Jessica Frost-Ballas here, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm using one of my favorite older Lawn Fawn sets to create an interactive light-up card. As the bunny moves closer to the lighthouse, its blinking light welcomes her home as if by magic. So let's get started. First, I stamp the lighthouse, bunny sailor, and sailboat from Smooth Sailing and color them with Copic markers. I use Toner Gray 10 to color the lighthouse door. Then I use R24, 27, and 29 for 3 sections of the lighthouse. I start with my lightest shade first, R24, and then add shading along the edges of the lighthouse with R29. I use R27 to extend the shadows from the edges and then finally blend it out with R24. Keeping the sides of the lighthouse darkest helps to give the illusion of roundness. On the other lighthouse stripes, I use Toner Gray 7, 5, 4, 2, 0, and my colorless blender. For the sailboat hull, I use Toner Gray 5 as my lightest shade. Then I add shadows with T10 and T7 before blending it back out with a T5. I use the same T5 marker as the darkest shade along the mast and rail. I blend that one out with T2 and T0. Then I use T2, T0, and the colorless blender to add a little shading to my white sails. Finally, I use the same R27 and 29 shades for my flag. For my bunny, I use R02 for his nose, and then color his fur with E31, 33, and 35. Once I finish coloring, I die cut the images with the coordinating dies. Now I start to create my scene. I die cut the stitched wave border die from an A2 panel of white cardstock. I save the top portion to use as a measuring guide later. Then I place the die cut wave on another A2 panel and arrange a simple stitched hillside border die behind the wave to create a little island for my lighthouse. I tape that in place and then run it through my die cutting machine. Then I place both the wave and the island on another A2 panel and lightly trace the outline of both shapes onto the panel. I erase the line so it's very faint. Next, I use the cloudy stencil to create a stormy sky. I use my traced line as a guide for where to start my clouds, and then lightly blend black soot distress oxide ink over the edge of the stencil. Then I rotate the stencil to a different side and repeat the process a few times until I'm happy with the coverage. Once I finish stenciling the sky, I blend hickory smoke distress oxide ink along the bottom of the first cloud. Then I use a very, very light hand to blend hickory smoke all over my clouds to soften the edges. Then I blend tea-dye distress oxide ink onto my island. I also add a little shading to the top with gathered twigs distress oxide ink. For my wave, I start with Blueprint Sketch Distress Oxide ink at the top. Then I add a little prize ribbon in the middle and finish with Chip Sapphire at the bottom. I blend back and forth between the colors until I have a smooth blend. As you can probably tell from the first images of my card, I end up adding more waves to this one, so really only the Blueprint Sketch will end up being visible. Once the ink dries, I splatter the island with water and gold paint. Then I spray the waves with shimmer spray and let all the panels dry. Next, I adhere my island and waves to the cloud panel. I ran out of ATG adhesive halfway through this card, so you'll see me start to use 1/4-inch double-sided tape for the rest of the card. Then I decide where I want to place my lighthouse on the island. Off camera, I punched a hole through the top glass part of the lighthouse, and I traced that circle onto the cloud panel. Then I used the same hole punch to punch that hole onto the cloud panel. Finally, I placed the cloud panel over another A2 panel of white cardstock and traced the hole that I just punched. Now I take the other half of the wave panel I told you to keep earlier. I place it over the top of the panel and trace it. This will give me a reference to know where my waves are on the front panel. You could also trace the waves we just blended, but I had already adhered them to my panel. I do all this in preparation for creating my light-up card. If you don't want to do that, you could just color the glass part of the lighthouse and adhere a yellow gem for a shiny light. Before I forget, I color around my lighthouse light using Y11 and Y13. Then I add adhesive to the lighthouse and adhere it to the card panel, making sure to line up the holes. I also adhere my little bunny to his ship with liquid glue. My light-up card will use a reed switch and a magnet to light up the lighthouse, so I line up the cards and mark approximately where I'd like the sailboat to be to light up my card. I also mark a starting location for my boat on the right side of my card. This probably doesn't make much sense right now, but I promise it will soon. I like to draw a reference for my circuits, and I start by tracing the shape of my 3-volt coin cell battery on the bottom left corner of my panel. Then I trace the shape of my LED sticker over the circle I traced for the lighthouse. The smaller point of the triangle is the negative part of the sticker, so I trace a line from the battery outline to that point. The longer traced edge of the LED sticker is the positive side of the sticker and will connect to the positive top side of the battery. I trace a line connecting that side to the battery outline, making sure that it crosses the mark I drew for where I want my sailboat to be to light up the card. As you can see, I've basically drawn a rectangle where the negative point of my sticker touches the negative side of the battery, and the positive edge of the sticker will touch the positive side of the battery. You could just leave it like that to create a light-up card, but I want to make mine a little more interactive. So I erase about 1 inch of my positive line around the asterisks I marked earlier and draw a rectangle. This will be where I place my reed switch to turn on the light. If you've never heard of a reed switch before, let me take a moment to chat about them. They're small electrical components with 2 thin fibers inside that are not touching. These fibers are susceptible to magnets, and when a magnet is placed nearby, it pulls the 2 fibers together until they touch, which completes your circuit and allows the LED stickers to light up. If there is no magnet nearby, your circuit will not complete. This allows you to create a movable piece that can be used to switch your lights on and off, creating a very unique interactive card. Now that my lines are traced out, I can start creating the circuit. First, I apply a little double-sided tape over my traced battery outline and remove the adhesive backing. Then I run a piece of conductive fabric tape from the negative point of my trace sticker outline to the center of the battery outline. Then I place my battery positive side up over the traced outline. Next, I take a small magnet and adhere it to the back of my sailboat. You can see my small reed switch here that I stick to the magnet. This just helps me hold it in place while I apply some glue to the back of the reed switch. Then I take the switch and adhere it to the traced rectangle. I apply conductive fabric tape from the reed switch to the positive side of the battery. I run the fabric tape over the little metal leg of the reed switch, fold it to create a corner, and then run it over the top of the battery. I also use a couple scraps of tape to make sure the reed switch won't move. Then I run a piece of tape from the positive side of the sticker outline to the other end of the reed switch. I add a few scraps to hold the reed switch in place on that end as well. I also add a few scraps of the conductive fabric tape over some of my other edges to make sure everything is well adhered. Next, I'm using an animating white blink LED sticker from Chibitronics. It's diamond shaped, and the top of the diamond is the positive side of the sticker, and the point of the diamond is the negative side. I adhere that over the trace the light outline, making sure that the positive side touches the positive side of the circuit and the negative point touches the negative side. At this point, nothing happens because the reed switch is open and the circuit is not complete. But when I place that magnet over the reed switch, it pulls the two inner fiber together to complete the circuit and my LED sticker blinks on and off. When I remove the magnet, the sticker turns off. Now I take a second magnet and place it over the sailboat magnet to make sure it attracts. Then I peel the adhesive backing off of the second magnet and adhere it to the other asterisk marking on our circuit panel. I pull the sailboat and its magnet away from the second magnet I just adhered. This will give the sailboat a place to rest when it's not lighting up the card. Next, I place my card panel over the circuit and test out my sailboat switch. When it's not in use, it sticks to the magnet on the right side of my card. But when I pick it up and move it over the reed switch, it lights up my lighthouse. To finish my circuit panel, I add a few more scraps of conductive fabric tape over the LED sticker to make sure it doesn't shift. Then I add foam mounting tape all across my circuit panel. The foam tape isn't conductive, so it doesn't matter if it touches or crosses any part of your circuit. I remove the adhesive backing and then remember to add a small square of vellum to the back of my card panel before adhering it to the circuit panel. This will soften the light shining through the lighthouse. I stamp and heat emboss a sentiment from smooth sailing and adhere it to the front of my panel. The rest of the sentiment is stamped inside the card. I also add the light beams in a few birds from the smooth sailing set and use a black multi-liner to fill in a few lighter areas. I also use a white gel pen to add a few accents to my images. At this point, I got a little indecisive. I ended up die cutting 2 more waves from the Stitched Waves border dies and blended them with Distress Oxide inks. For the middle wave, I used prize ribbon, and for the bottom wave, I used chipped sapphire with a little black soot on the edges. I also splattered them with shimmer spray and let them dry. I peeled the sentiment off the original wave and then adhered my 2 new waves. Then I added the sentiment back on top. I really like the variation of the 3 waves and I'm glad I added them in. And that's it. When you move the bunny over the reed switch, the lighthouse blinks on and off. And then you can move her back over the magnet so she stays in place. You can find more information on the products I used in the YouTube description below or over on my blog. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, and I'd love for you to subscribe to my channel. If you do subscribe, make sure you click the bell so you're notified the next time I post. Here are a few more videos you might be interested in, and until next time, have an amazing day and happy crafting. Bye!